This is a channeled message from Adama on the nature of spiritual awakenings. Now, I am slightly hesitant to use the term awakening, for that might not be the best way to describe all of the awakenings that we will talk about today. However, that is the term that is most commonly used by the beings in the third dimension to describe the phenomena which we will cover today. So that being said, I would like to first note that under this umbrella term of spiritual awakenings, there are many types of spiritual awakenings. And in my personal opinion, I believe that one's first spiritual awakening may be or should be the only one that should be called an awakening. For one's first spiritual awakening is indeed similar to one waking up from a slumber or from sleep to see the true nature of the world around them. And every subsequent spiritual awakening, if you will, to me, I believe should be called a spiritual upgrade. So please note that for all intents and purposes of this channeling now, we will refer to one's first awakening as an awakening, and all awakenings after that will be referred to as a spiritual upgrade or a spiritual enhancement. Now, that being said, traditionally, when the human body is fully actualized from birth, and one is not forced to submit to the lower vibrational frequencies of modern day society, then one will usually undergo their first spiritual awakening somewhere around the age of puberty. Now, this does differ for each individual person, and usually women or females will have their first awakening earlier than males, merely due to the nature of their development and the sensitivity of feminine energy and the, shall we say, lack of sensitivity to the more subtle vibrations of the masculine energy. Sorry, that sounded a bit confusing. I meant to say that the masculine energy is not quite as easy for a masculine energy to perceive the subtle vibrations of the higher frequencies as it is for a feminine energy. There we go. That is more clear. But that being said, usually this will occur sometime between the ages of 16 and 25 for the human being that is fully self-actualized. Now, for beings who are not fully self-actualized from a young age, this may not occur ever. And this is indeed part of the epidemic of the lower vibrational frequencies currently present on Earth. For the vast majority of people who are incarnated on Earth at this time do not have the wherewithal to fully embody their spiritual forms. So in this way, they find that they may not undergo a spiritual awakening ever in their life. Or if they do, perhaps it will be much, much, much later in their life. But for the purposes of this message and this lesson, I would like to speak on the ideal developmental path of a spiritual human being. And on this ideal path, we shall say that one undergoes their first spiritual awakening at the age of 18. For indeed, that would be the most rational time for one to undergo their first spiritual awakening in modern day society. For when one arrives at the age of 18 in your Western culture, you find it is indeed the case that you are considered spontaneously to be an adult, and you are now responsible for thinking and forming your own conclusions in a way that you were not previously. And indeed, I am partially referring to the rules of voting in the United States. But that is a slight digression. Now, assuming that one undergoes their first spiritual awakening at age 18, this will be considered on track for the lifespan of one's spiritual being. Now, this channel personally underwent her first spiritual awakening at age 16, and indeed, it was very difficult for her, and it took her many, many, many years to fully pass through this phase of her life into an awakened state. But that being said, she was not self-actualized when she underwent this awakening, and she did not have all of her basic needs met as per Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for this is indeed a very accurate form of measuring one's needs. But she had not had all of her needs met at that time, so she was not fully self-actualized, and this did indeed influence the intensity of her spiritual awakening. And had she been fully self-actualized and had all of her needs met, then this awakening would have been much easier for her. However, that is perhaps a moot point considering the circumstances. I will just leave it there, for the channel understands what I am getting at. But that being said, when one undergoes their first spiritual awakening, if they are not fully self-actualized yet, they may find that they first are drawn inwards to process trauma and release karma. And this is indeed quite the intensive endeavor. However, one need not have fully processed all of their trauma and their karma during this first spiritual awakening. For indeed, at this moment on Earth, that is quite the large endeavor, so it will not be fully necessary for one to fully process their trauma and clear their karma before completing their first spiritual awakening. But that being said, that is the majority of the work being done in this awakening. And that stems from the awakening of the realization that one does not need to suffer, and that the only one who can cause one to suffer is oneself. So this is, of a sort, the awakening of the awareness of ego. And indeed, this is quite an important milestone in one's life. For this is one of the main reasons that one incarnates on Earth, and so, one of the main reasons that one incarnates on Earth is to learn this lesson of the ego and to become aware of it and to overcome it. And so, indeed, this is a momentous moment in any being's life, and it should be celebrated, no matter the difficulty or strife that may proceed. For as I have said, this can be a rocky road, and one's first spiritual awakening has a tendency to be the worst. Or perhaps not the worst, but the most intense and the most uncomfortable. And as this channel would say, the worst. But that being said, one also may learn many lessons during their first spiritual awakening, and traditionally these are one of these lessons is the awakening of the awareness of one's energy body. However, as I have said previously, this is purely dependent on the individual, and for some, their awareness of their energy body may not come until much later on down their spiritual path. However, for some, as is the case with this channel, they may find that their energy body and their awareness of it is the first to awaken. And upon this, one may find that they may also awaken one or two of their most innate higher or lower faculties. So that is the higher or lower faculties that come most easily to one. And for this being, for this channel, it was her ability to astral travel and leave her body, and also her ability to communicate in the higher realms. So this can be considered telepathy, or it may be considered reaching out to guides and connecting with them. Or perhaps a better way to encompass both of these abilities is to say that she developed an awareness of the more subtle vibrations of her reality, and thus became aware of her ability to astral travel and also of her ability to perform these communications. For she was already capable of doing so before, to a certain extent. However, she was just not aware of it. And this is indeed the case for many beings. So just because you are not aware of your higher or lower faculties does not mean that you are not using them. However, that being said, one's higher self does have a tendency to block off one's higher and lower faculties until they are aware enough and conscious enough to perceive them before they are able to use them. But as always, this is individual to each person. So if you think you are using your higher or lower faculties without being aware of them, trust your intuition. Now, that being said, one may also begin to learn the basics of the universal laws in this first spiritual awakening. However, for many people, this will come after they have settled into their first spiritual awakening, and once they have entered into their second spiritual awakening that we will call a spiritual enhancement. So we will call this their second spiritual enhancement. So I know that might be considered confusing. However, this will be the second awakening that one will go through, so we will call it their second enhancement. Doesn't quite make sense, Dama, but okay, we'll go with it. Now, that being said, I would like to, before I continue on in this endeavor of explaining this the spiritual enhancement, I would like to first explain the more mechanical nature of the spiritual awakenings. For all spiritual awakenings and enhancements have a similar theme, shall we say, in the way in which they occur. So, for example, the underlying mechanics and the underlying ways in which a spiritual awakening may occur is the same between one's first spiritual awakening and their last spiritual enhancement before death, to a certain extent. So that extent is the way in which the energy works. So when one undergoes their first spiritual awakening, indeed it may be a bit more harsh and a bit more volatile and chaotic than their proceeding spiritual enhancements. However, this is not always the case, as this channel has recently learned, but we will get to that later. Now, that being said, when one undergoes their first spiritual awakening, they may find that it is sparked by a spontaneous expansion of consciousness. And this may be due to one's own efforts, or it may be due to higher guidance intervening, as was the case with this channel. For indeed, her guides have been very active in her life beyond her awareness from the day she was born. Yeah, did not know that, but cool. Thanks, guides. Never turn down help. Indeed, we on Earth are indeed very lucky to have so many numerous guides watching over us here. But our guides may indeed intervene on our behalf to spark these spiritual awakenings if they find that we are lagging behind the proper timeline or the preferred timeline that is in the highest and best good of the collective. And so, of course, with consent from your higher self, your spirit guides may intervene and, shall we say, beam you up. Wow, I'm proud of that cultural reference, Adama. That was a good one. They will strike you with a beam of energy, a beam of light. They will bless you with energy, and this will, shall we say, expand your consciousness into higher and lower realms, so that way you may be more aware of your superconscious and your subconscious. However, this will also expand the vibrational frequency of your being as a whole on all of the levels of your being, from the physical to the highest. And indeed, the first time this happens, this may be quite jarring. And this is why one may find that their first spiritual awakening is accompanied by the wildest mood swings ever, as this channel would say. For indeed, when one is gifted this vast amount of energy during an awakening, their body is not always fully equipped to handle it at the beginning. However, please note that your guides will never give you more than you can handle, no matter how difficult it may seem. So, that being said, when this energy is introduced into one's form, they may find that they may experience a slightly manic state followed by a slightly depressive state. However, this will not be to the extreme extent of the mental illnesses known as bipolar 1 and 2. But they will indeed be intense for the average bear, and they may last up to 3 days. However, for this channel, it lasted about 1 day for each one. And for her, the depressive episode lasted much longer than her manic episode did, but that is due to the nature of the trauma that she underwent in her formative years. So this may not be the case for others. However, considering the nature of many of the beings on Earth right now, this may be the case for many, unfortunately. So please hold space for yourself, and if you find your depression too much to bear, please, as always, reach out to your guides, and they will never hesitate to aid you in this process. Now, indeed, this is the reason why this channel chose to lock away her Ka before she entered into this body as a walk-in soul, because if she had undergone her first spiritual awakening with her Ka present in her body, the first thing that she would have learned, the first thing that she would have gained from this spiritual awakening would have been knowledge of the trauma from her previous lifetime as a slave in ancient Egypt. And indeed, this would have been much too stressful, considering at this point in her life, she was still processing her trauma from this life. And so she would not have had space to process trauma from that past life as well, especially considering the intensity of the trauma. So this information is not meant for everyone. It is meant just for the channel herself. So, yeah, thanks, Adama. Now, that being said, back to this first spiritual awakening and this energetic blast that one receives, this energetic gift, this blessing, if you will, it is indeed a sort of bringing online of one's consciousness. So one may find that before their awakening, they may feel like they were asleep. And indeed, they may feel like before they were awakened that they were an NPC, as they are sometimes called, or a non-player character from a video game. Wow, Adama is on point with the social references today. Hell yeah. Indeed, this is partially due to our increased connection from your recent awakening and your recent upgrade and the upgrade that is currently being underwent. There we go. But back to the spiritual awakening. When one is gifted with this energy, whether it is from their higher self or from their external guides or from any other being of the highest and holiest, they may find that their nervous system does not quite know how to handle it. And this may come across as anxiety, it may come across as excitement, it may come across as mania, and it may indeed come across as symptoms of what is commonly known as POTS disease, POTS symptoms. I'm not quite sure if it's a disease or not, but POTS. And these symptoms include, but are not limited to, lightheadedness, dizziness, feeling faint when one stands up, irregular heart rate, issues with body temperature regulation, and issues with achieving homeostasis in the body in general. However, this is a passing influence. This is a temporary influence due to the nature of the awakening or the upgrade, because when one receives these energy upgrades and awakenings, as I have said, it takes time for their body to adjust to them. So that being said, that implies that their body will indeed adjust to these new energies. However, that is not to say that all who experience the symptoms of POTS are going through an awakening, for this is certainly not the case. And POTS is indeed a medical issue of its own. However, I merely use this as an example to describe the symptoms of a spiritual awakening and to describe how intense and visceral they may be if one is in tune and aware of those frequencies. Now, that being said, there are many proceeding upgrades that one may go through after their first awakening. And we have spoken of these previously, however, I will list some of them now before we delve into some that we have not talked about before. So, one of the spiritual awakenings, of the enhancements that one may undergo after their first awakening, is the spiritual enhancement of a Kundalini awakening. Now, I use the term awakening to refer to this because this is the awakening of the Kundalini energy body, as was the first awakening, an awakening of the consciousness. So, in this way, one may have an awakening of their Kundalini energy, known as a Kundalini rising. And for more information on this, please consult the channeling on the awakening and embodiment of Kundalini and Ka. And indeed, the awakening of one's Ka is considered one of these energetic upgrades as well. And similarly, the embodiment of Kundalini and Ka, respectively, are considered further enhancements of the energy body. So there are separate awakenings for the awakening of Kundalini and the embodiment of Kundalini, or the Kundalini rising, as it is sometimes called, as is the same for Ka. And this indeed may be the case for one's astral body as well. However, this is more dependent on the being. For some beings have a more innate awareness of their astral body than others do. And so if one has a more innate awareness of their astral body, then they may find that they never have an awakening of their astral body, for it is already awakened from birth. However, this is not the case for the majority of beings on Earth at this time, so the majority of beings on Earth may indeed have an awakening of their astral body. However, this is usually more so an expansion of consciousness, and so it is not quite as intense as the previous awakenings and enhancements that we have mentioned. For indeed, the awakening of one's Kundalini can be quite intense, almost as intense as one's first awakening in some cases, and in other cases, even more intense than the first awakening. And the awakening of the Ka, although less intense than the Kundalini, is still much more intense than the majority of one's spiritual awakenings and enhancements. Now, that being said, I would like to further delve into more kinds of awakenings that one may undergo. And indeed, I would like to first speak on the kind of awakening that this channel is currently experiencing. For she is experiencing quite the tumultuous stream of events due to this awakening. So, the awakening which this channel is undergoing currently is the awakening of an energy that is not her own. For this channel received an energetic enhancement, a spiritual enhancement from the goddess Isis about 3 days ago on Tuesday, and today is Friday. Now, when she received this spiritual enhancement from the goddess, she was, at the time, extremely excited and did not feel any particular way about this enhancement, for she was only aware of the barest thread of the energy's presence in her body. However, as time has gone on and this energy has assimilated into her form, she has found that her nervous system is having extreme difficulties with this transition. And indeed, this is quite common for awakenings of this type. Now, one may receive an energetic offering in this way and an energetic upgrade, and this may spark a spiritual enhancement or a spiritual awakening. And they may receive these from many types of beings, and pretty much any being who is above the 6th dimension may provide these to one. However, those of the 6th density may do so as well, so the majority of us here in Telos may aid the beings on Earth in these awakenings and enhancements and further embodiments of this energy. However, for the beings of the lower dimensions, which is to say the beings who are of the 6th and 7th and perhaps even a bit of the 8th dimension, this will not be quite as intense as it is for the beings of the higher dimensions, which are the higher end of the 8th dimension and all of the 9th dimension. However, I would like to quickly note that those are not the proper terms, or the proper use of the terms the higher and the lower dimensions, for traditionally we use the term the lower dimensions to refer to everything in physicality, which is the 3rd dimension and below, and the higher dimensions are considered to be the dimensions of energy, which are 4th and above. However, the use of those terms in that previous context in the former context was a more relative use of these terms. Just have to clarify our terminology quickly. But back to the lesson. The type of spiritual awakening that comes from, or that is sparked by the energy from another being, can be even more intense than one's first spiritual awakening. For it is usually much more difficult for one to undergo it is usually much more difficult for one to assimilate energy that is not from their own energy body or from their own higher self than it is for them to assimilate energy that is. So in the instance of one's first spiritual awakening, the energy that they receive is usually from their own higher soul. And in the awakenings that we are speaking of now, the energy that one is receiving is from a higher being other than one's higher self. And so this is similar to the process in which one gets an organ transplant, and it takes time for the new organ to fully adapt into the body and for the body to make sure that the organ is part of self. However, unlike an organ transplant, one need not worry about this energy rejecting as a transplanted organ does. For in the case of these spiritual gifts, in the case of these energetic gifts from a higher being, one may always know and be confident in the fact that this higher being would not provide them with this energetic gift if one was not capable of accepting it. However, I would also like to underline the importance of only working with beings of the highest and holiest who work in the love and the light of our one true Creator. For beings who are not of the light may not have these same boundaries. And they may indeed gift you energy that you are not capable of sustaining. But this awakening is spoken more of in the last channeling on the temple of goddess Isis. And indeed, there are many other temples and initiations which one may undergo. And for example, this channel has recently also undergone the initiation of Mother Mary? I did? When did I do that? Oh. Cool. Indeed, this channel underwent this one last night, for she did indeed have a bit of a panic attack, and this is how she perceived her initiation into Mother Mary's temple. And so now she is indeed an initiate of Mother Mary, as well as a few other beings whom she has yet to encounter. Wait, what? Yeah, that's news to me. Indeed, all will happen in divine timing, so you will become aware of these initiations and these relationships as they come to pass. Now, a quick side note in response to a question that this channel has just posed in the astral. One's personal spirit guides are indeed different than the beings whose initiations they undergo and who they receive these spiritual awakenings in this manner from. For one's spirit guides are almost always chosen before their incarnation, and although one's soul may choose to undergo these initiations before incarnation, and they may wish to undergo these initiations before incarnation, as the saying goes, only time will tell, and due to the nature of free will, one may never fully step into their initiatehood for some or all of the beings to whom they are initiated. But of course, this is the nature of free will, and one may choose which initiations they wish to associate with and which ones they do not, depending on their preferences in this incarnation. And these choices may differ from the preferences that their higher self chose for them before this incarnation. However, if one wishes to follow the path that will achieve the highest and best outcome, they may indeed wish to follow the path that their higher self has set out for them, for one's higher self is infinitely more wise than their incarnate self. But of course, thus is the nature of incarnation. And this has been spoken of in previous channelings as well. But that being said, when one receives an initiation from a being, one may receive many different gifts, and these initiations may be undergone for many different purposes. And I shall endeavor to explain a few of them now. So first of all, I would like to explain the offerings of Goddess Isis in her temple, for this is the one that the channel is most familiar with. So, when one undergoes the initiation of Goddess Isis, they are usually gifted access to their clairvoyance and their other higher faculties. And perhaps for some, even their lower faculties. However, this is usually more of a runoff effect, wherein one strengthening their higher faculties automatically strengthens their lower faculties. For as above, so below. Now, one may also, in their work with Goddess Isis, become more attuned to the subtle vibrations and the higher vibrations. However, this is the case to a certain extent with almost all of the initiations which one may undergo. However, to a much more extreme extent for the initiates of Goddess Isis. For Goddess Isis is indeed quite the magical being. And indeed, her energetic counterpart, shall we say, is Saint Germain, for they are both of the violet flame energy. Now, the beings who receive Saint Germain's, or who undergo Saint Germain's initiation, may find that their greatest strengths are being in this world, but not of it. They may find that they have great insight into the inner workings of the ego. And they may indeed find that their demons, shall we say, or the parts of themselves that they are in dissonance with, are burned up by this violet flame. And indeed, this can be quite the tumultuous experience, as one of this channel's pardon, the channel got distracted. But as one of this channel's friends has experienced in this lifetime. And indeed, this channel may choose to undergo this, and for her, it may not be quite as intense due to her previous initiations, clearing the way for this future initiation with Saint Germain. And indeed, she may have the opportunity for this when she comes to visit us here in Telos at Mount Shasta. But that is off in the future, and will indeed happen in divine timing. Now, for the initiation of Mother Mary, this is perhaps similar to the initiation of Saint Germain in that they are both rather intense, as this channel learned last night, and the initiation of Mother Mary is that of holding space and expressing compassion and kindness, specifically towards oneself, or if one has an extremely negative relationship with a being in their life, then they may be initiated by expressing these positive sentiments towards that being with whom they have an extremely negative relationship. Excuse me. However, for most of the beings who are incarnated on Earth at this moment, the being with whom they have the most negative relationship in their life is themselves. So for the majority of beings who choose to undergo the initiation of Mother Mary, they may find that their initiation calls them to hold space for themselves in a dire time of need, and the most difficult part of this initiation is to not turn to other beings. For when one is experiencing these extreme states of distress, of course one will seek connection, as is human nature. For humans must have connection in order to thrive and survive, but the initiation of Mother Mary calls one to learn how to self-regulate in this way and learn how to self-soothe. However, as always, please note that Mother Mary is the embodiment of these sentiments that she wishes you to embody, so she will be present with you throughout your entire initiation, holding space for you and expressing compassion for you and yourself. And if you are able to tap into her energy, she will be present there with you and aid you in this effort. So in this way, one may find that Mother Mary's initiation may be a little bit less distressful than the initiation of Saint Germain, for Saint Germain will not be there to comfort you, and he will tell you to suck it up, cupcake. However, it will be said with love and kindness, just perhaps not the compassion and empathy of Mother Mary. However, I do not say this to paint Saint Germain as a cold-hearted bitch, as you may say, for he is not cold-hearted or a bitch, but indeed his initiation is very tough. But that being said, this channel has also undergone the initiation of Ra, and this was done as a counterbalance to her initiation of Isis. And indeed, this was done many, many years ago for her. And she has no conscious recollection of it, for it was done almost exclusively in the astral realms. Yeah, wait, I have no idea when this happened. It happened right around the same time that you were able to perceive that you were astrally projecting. And indeed, this was a rather subtle initiation by the standards of most initiations, for your body and your consciousness were not prepared for the full initiation. So you are not a priestess of Ra as you are a priestess of Isis and of Mother Mary. However, that will indeed most likely be the next initiation which you undergo. And indeed, this will be perhaps the most challenging initiation for you, and the one which you have the highest chance of failing at. For this initiation is one of great joy and excitement, and it is one of learning how to contain this great joy and excitement, and how to process these positive emotions and release them in the same way that you process and release negative emotions. Oh, that's gonna be a big struggle for me, I can already tell. Indeed, it will, but I have faith in your abilities to complete this initiation, for indeed you have gone through much more trying times before. And this will indeed be much more of a conscious choice than it is overcoming subconscious patterns. So in this way, it may be easier in a sense, but more difficult in another. Also, for those of you who are wondering what the background noise is, that's the channel's cat. She's saying hi. But there are indeed almost unlimited initiations which one may undergo, in the manner of that there are many beings who have initiations that are being offered to the beings on Earth at this moment. And indeed, another one of these initiations, as spoken of in the Magdalene manuscript, is the initiation of Horus. And indeed, this channel is an initiate of Horus as well. However, she is an initiate with a lowercase I to refer to our terminology from the previous channeling. For indeed, the formal initiation of Horus, in which one may become the embodiment of Horus, is indeed the gateway of death. And one must pass through all of the traumas and all of the difficulties and strife that they have undergone in this lifetime while they are passing through the initiation of Horus after death. And indeed, this is where the inspiration for Dante's Inferno came from. For that story and the way in which hell is described in that story is quite similar to the way one moves through their experiences from this lifetime in the initiation of Horus after death. And this initiation of Horus is also the reason behind the highly specific ancient Egyptian burial traditions. For indeed, if one wishes to fully undergo the awakening of Horus, it is in the highest and best good that their physical body not be disturbed after they pass on, and that they have beings who watch over them after their death. So, if one wishes to undergo the initiation of Horus after their death, it is in their highest and best good that they choose to be buried without a coffin 6 days after their death. And for the 6 days after their death leading up to their burial, it is in the highest and best good that 1 or 2 family members or friends maintain sigil 24/7 over 24/6 over this body. For indeed, the presence of one's friends and families around their corpse will allow for their soul to experience the support of their family and friends as they pass through the initiation of Horus. And if their friends are rather spiritually inclined, they may indeed find that they experience they get to meet their friends' higher selves or parts of their energy body in this initiation. However, this is extremely rare, and I say it only because it is a slight possibility and it's fun to think about. However, if you wish to undergo the initiation of Horus, it is best to not expect one of those experiences, for they are indeed quite rare and are usually reserved for one's soulmate or twin flame. And so, indeed, this channel may experience this phenomenon during her initiation of Horus after death. However, I use the term may quite loosely in this case. But that being said, there are many, many other initiations which one may undergo, and indeed, the beings who offer these initiations may be considered gods among the many pantheons across human civilization, be they Norse, Greek, Indian, or many others. So, in this way, one may find that if they are drawn to a specific being, then they may undergo the initiation of this being, even if they are not aware that that is what they are doing. For one does not need to viscerally consent to these initiations because their actions alone will be consent enough. So, for example, last night Marlena underwent the initiation of Mother Mary, and she was not aware of it. However, the fact that she willingly submitted to the experience and surrendered the experience to Spirit expressed her acceptance of this initiation. Hi, Lunabug. And so, in this way, one may experience other initiations as well. And indeed, this was the case for her initiation of Ra as well. And may be the case for initiations further down the line. However, as her sensitivity to the more subtle vibrations increases, this probability will decrease. And she may find that she is more aware of these initiations. And this may be the case for all beings as well, for thus is the nature of awareness. But that being said, there is one more type of awakening that I wish to speak on, and that is the awakening of one's interpersonal energy body, or the connection to the collective. Or perhaps one could describe it as the awakening of the knowledge of oneness. However, it could be noted, or it should be noted, that when one becomes aware of oneness, this may not be enough for them to fully embody the concept of oneness. And so the awakening that I speak of now will only be accomplished when one fully embodies the idea, the concept of oneness. And this may be perhaps the most consciously jarring, but the least physically jarring awakening which one may undergo, for it involves a total paradigm shift of one's worldview and is less so an energetic upgrade and more of an expansion of awareness. However, this will feel different for every being, and depending on their attachment to their individuality, one may find that this experience is more or less consciously jarring. But that being said, there are many ways in which one may undergo this type of awakening. However, the easiest way is to simply meditate as much as possible on the belief of oneness. And one will know that they are fully able to, or one will know that they have fully undergone this awakening when they are able to connect to the collective consciousnesses and become aware of the energetic exchanges that they perform in day-to-day life. For every interaction is a form of energetic exchange in some shape or fashion. But that being said, that is all that we have for today. And as always, it has been a great pleasure. Toodaloo!